This class is just a good primer for anyone wanting to get involved more actively into the production of electronic music. This is more designed for you to develop your own as opposed to straight up ripping me. This is Deadmau5 and this is my masterclass.
Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. It's Lewis P here. Today what we're going to be doing is a complete overview video of the Deadmau5 Masterclass and figure out, is it worth it for you based on the type of music you produce, how long you've been producing, and ultimately just figuring out, is it worth it for you from a pricing perspective and the value you get from the class. Now of course I have a link in the description, so if you want to get the masterclass you can get it for an unknown amount. Masterclass are constantly changing their prices up based on the region you were in, and we're talking about changing almost every single day. So this price is going to be very different from a price that you see probably in America or Canada or Europe, wherever you are. Let me know the price that you see when you click the link, because I have no idea how much this course is anymore. I'm going to take you into the actual class itself because I already have the all access pass, which gives me access to the Armin Van Buuren Masterclass, the Deadmau5 Masterclass, all of these masterclasses, which of course I've done a comparison review of. So if you look on the top right of your screen right now, or even the top left, depending on what YouTube has done, because they like to change stuff for the sake of changing stuff. If you look on the top right, you'll see an Armin Van Buuren versus Deadmau5 Masterclass comparison video or review video, where I actually do a deep dive into which one is worth it for you based on who you are. If you want to look at the Armin Van Buuren Masterclass or you want to look at the other one. Just really quickly though, the all access masterclass is actually a 1-year subscription, whereas the single class is a lifetime deal. So I highly recommend you take that into account when you make this investment. Whatever the price is for the single class, which I have a link to in the description, that's for life, whereas the all access you get everything but for like 365 days or 1 year. Take that into account when you do this stuff, and I'm just answering that question before I get those comments of answering. Now go grab a cup of coffee, go grab a tea, something that's going to make you really comfortable, because this is going to be a long video. The reason this is going to be a long video is because this program, this Deadmau5 Masterclass, Deadmau5 or Deadmau, the Deadmau5 Masterclass goes for 6 hours, and we're going to be doing a complete deep dive into each video lesson. We're going to look at the workbook and figure out if it's worth it for you. Okay, is the quality up to par based on the price you're getting? And of course, you can't really find this anywhere else on the internet. Deadmau5 has never actually done anything like this before. Of course, he has his streams where he goes on for like 8 hours plus, but he's not in that teaching mode. And if you value time, which you should, because it's our most valuable asset, you would understand that you want to condense everything into around 6 hours worth of content and knowledge. Now, for me, I remember when I was creating music and producing music almost 3 years ago, I created multiple videos on the Deadmau5 Masterclass. My first ever videos on YouTube were about the Deadmau5 Masterclass. And if you actually click into my YouTube channel and you go to like videos created and scroll all the way down, you'll see that the first ever video I created was on the Deadmau5 Masterclass. This is a 3 years reflection video, which I have not seen on YouTube to date. Let me know what price you see by clicking the link below. Let's jump into it. 23 videos, yes, we know that. The class workbook, yes, we're going to go through that right now. Anytime, anywhere. Now this is really powerful because what Masterclass has done is created 2 really powerful apps, the Google Play app and the App Store, like the iOS app. This is not to just be overwritten really fast. A lot of effort has been put into both of these apps. I highly recommend you get it, because especially when you're investing in a class like this or a master class like this, you're maybe on the road, you're heading to work on the train, or you're on a bus and you want to just check out a lesson and you want to be like, you know what? I wonder what Deadmau5's masterclass on mindset is, on the way he thinks about things. Or you want, you know what? I want to figure out how to create melodic structure. I want to just do a review on that and how he does it, because I completely forgot. And that's why the single class is really powerful, because it's lifetime. But then again, that's where the power of the all access class is, because you essentially have access every single one of the 60 plus instructors that Masterclass has. So one day you can be doing, you know, the Armin Van Buuren. The next day you could be doing the Hans Zimmer Masterclass. The flexibility of the platform itself based on the iOS and the Android is a big deal, everyone. They put a lot of effort into this. They put a lot of investment into building these, so I don't want to just skim over that. It's really powerful. It's on Trustpilot, which is brand new. There's only 164 reviews right now, but when I take you into the masterclass itself, you're going to see the amount of comments and the positive comments that are in these masterclasses. Here is an entire overview of the course structure, which we're going to go into very soon. And then here are the other classes that you get with the all access if you want to actually do them. So Hans Zimmer, Armin Van Buuren, these are pretty big names in the world of music, and I've done reviews on a few of them as well. So So let's jump into the masterclass right now. So this is what the masterclass, the Deadmau5 Masterclass looks like as soon as you invest in it. Now, of course, if you want to just get right into it and start, you just press the big red button and you're off to the races, which is fantastic. However, I want to get you comfortable into this interface and figuring out what it all is. So search exists, so you can actually search for a masterclass. So if you have the all access, you can be like, okay, I want to search for the Armin Van Buuren Masterclass and I want to do that one today instead of the Deadmau5 Masterclass. So that's why the search function's there. It's not just a random thing. It's not like a YouTube search engine or something like that. It's a search engine built on the platform itself, aka the masterclass platform. Categories exists if you have the all access masterclass as well, which gives you access to all of the masterclasses. I mean, if you look at film and TV, there's quite a few. These are big hitters, big names. If you look at music, these guys can teach you so much about music. Usher, Hans Zimmer, Armin Van Buuren, they can teach you a lot. So it just gives you access to all of them, which is great. The community, something that a lot of people overstep. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And if you're hanging around a community that are positive, they're engaging, and I'm not just saying that for like fluffiness of saying that, it actually works. If you're hanging around people that are positive, engaging, and they want to learn and progress themselves, you become that as well. So it's really critical that you engage with this community, and you'll see how much like love goes into this community. For example, if you look at lesson 1, this is just comments in the video, by the way, so you can already see the power of this community just from the first comment section in the first video of the Deadmau5 Masterclass. 9,639 comments, and the latest comment says good. That's great. Quick lists are basically playlists, sort of like a YouTube version of saying, if you have the all access, you can be like, I'm going to create a super masterclass whereby I'm going to pull a bit of Armin, I'm going to pull a bit of Hans Zimmer, I'm going to pull a bit of Deadmau5, Timbaland, and then create like a quick list, which is pretty cool. My classes, which is, I mean, if you have all access, that doesn't really need to do anything. And then of course, all the account info as well. Profile, you can add notifications whenever they release a new masterclass. Bookmarks, completely useless. Browse trailers, also useless in my opinion. Gift, you can actually give the gift of masterclass. Click the link below if you want to actually gift masterclass to someone, especially over Christmas or their birthday or mid-year celebration, whatever it is. Really powerful gift, especially if you want to give the gift of knowledge. Pretty cool. Articles are really just blogs and stuff that Masterclass writes. Pretty interesting if you want to go down that route. I don't like it that much. I've never actually read an article, but hey, it's there. So let's jump into it. Pack your seats, guys. Like, get comfortable. This is going to be fun. So let's download the workbook really fast. Let's start with the workbook. Let's see what you're getting. And then you're going to see that the workbook is actually a supplement to everything that you see within the Masterclass. So there are 61 pages. Don't take that lightly. There's a lot of content in this. So to be really respectful to those that have invested in this masterclass, I'm only going to show you 3 pages just to be respectful to them. You can see the production quality is that of a level that's insane. About Joel, if you want to read this, by all means, just pause the video. I'm not going to read this out to you. And here is the introduction, the workbook. And what's really cool is the hub. There are hyperlinks in this. So hyperlinks will take you to getting like Ableton for a discounted price or for free. And for this page 3, if you will, this is about the introduction. It talks to you about, the class workbooks, the lesson discussions, how the hub works. The hub is basically the community. The Deadmau5 music. So, you can actually download his files, his actual Ableton files in this masterclass, which is pretty cool. And then, how to use Joel's masterclass. By all means, feel free to pause that if you want to read it, and let's move on. Now, something a lot of people do know, and I think they've been educated on this pretty well. There's a difference between this community and that community. This community is solely for the Deadmau5 Masterclass. If you look at the link on the bottom left, you'll see that, you can even zoom in. I'll zoom in the video a bit. If you look at the link, this community is purely for the Deadmau5 Masterclass users. So for example, if you invest in the single masterclass, you will have access to this masterclass community. So there are sort of like sub forums within this community. Pretty cool. This community is for everyone. It's built for everyone. This community is built for the Deadmau5 users. So if you want to only talk to music producers that are positive and want to amplify their music lessons and all that jazz, and they want to learn together as a collective, that's the community you want to be part of. Of course, resources is just a workbook. Again, everyone, this is a 23 lesson course. Get ready for this. Pause your video if you need to. Grab a coffee. Make sure you're comfortable. We're going to dive into every single lesson right now. And I'm going to try go through it as fast as possible so you can make an informed decision whether or not you want to invest in something like the Deadmau5 Masterclass. So let's start off with the introduction. Welcome to the DeadMouse studio. Meet Joel, the man behind the mouse. By the way, Disney sued this guy for that mouse head, and he actually won as a result. So that's why, you see him with the mouse head. And learn what he's got planned for you in the class. Basically, quick introduction. It only goes for 3 minutes. He talks about how he's going to be teaching you, his method, and all those good things. And you can see 9,639 comments as a result. Of course, there is chapter 1, which relates to the workbook, which we've just discussed. So lesson 2 is the Deadmau5 process, Deadmau5 process, looking at theory. Now, of course, if you look at 3, it says practice, theory, and then applying that theory into practice. Very important.
Just let it sit for a couple days and then go back at it like 2 or 3 more times, and then just have a listen through and then...
It's all about the experimentation. Learn Joel's unique approach to the music creation process and how to get the most out of your time in the studio. Now, the central point here is how to get the most out of your time in the studio. A lot of people, when they create music, they're actually not creating music efficiently, and they're not creating it with a process in mind whereby they're going to get the most out of their time within the studio. So that's really important that you understand that theory behind it. So find a way to stop thinking. That is such an interesting way and approach to making music. An example he gives is he will wake up at 10 a.m. in the morning, and then he will actually go to bed, stay awake the entire time until 7 a.m. And he says about this flow state zone whereby he's awake from 3 to 7 and he's so tired, but he's creating some really insane stuff. So he looks at ways to stop thinking about when you're creating music. And I've never seen anyone talk about music production like that. Not even Armin Van Buuren talks about music production like that, which of course I have a video comparison on the top right now. You don't have to feel it to write it. Really, really critical. His approach is so different from everyone else. He encourages experimentation with your content, with your music, instead of just finding inspiration from the world and things like that, which is completely different from Armin Van Buuren. He looks at the theory of 23 seconds as a track. He looks at how every producer actually copies other producers, and then the good producers actually copy in new ways and add new value to the music. You don't have to be a team player in this music world. I mean, especially when it's a solo-based game, but you still need to understand the business behind creating music and how important that is, which he does go into. He looks at your doubts. He's like, don't be fearful. It's okay to make mistakes. It's actually really good if you make mistakes, if you're learning from them. And then of course, he actually starts a track from scratch. This lesson goes for 13 minutes and 16 seconds. And you can see 2,659 comments. Really useful stuff said in this masterclass. Rewatching it now, right now. So you can see there is actually replayability in this. And here's a perfect comment saying that. So that's why I highly recommend, if you're only going to watch the Deadmau5 Masterclass, probably invest in the single masterclass. But if you want access to all of them, you definitely want to look at the all access masterclass if you want to have all access to all the other masterclasses, which is a pretty big subscription to have anyway. Then the next part of the Deadmau5 process within his masterclass is practice. So applying that theory and putting it into practice. And this is the best way to start, in my opinion. You just see him start a track from scratch. And this track is pretty good as well. And it's completely unreleased. I think they have it in the community at this point in time, which is pretty cool. Then of course, lesson 4, building out your home studio. So making sure that your foundation is correct when you're building tracks. So, and he starts right from, I love this, it's process, theory, process, practice. Now let's build out your home studio and make sure that you have a good foundation when it comes to your sound.
In the fucking $2 million room with every fucking synth, or you're in on a laptop or whatever, if you don't have the ideas, and the melodic structure and to know what notes sound good together, then you're fucked either way, dude,
So ready to start building out your home studio and making tracks on your own? Here's Joel's advice for the gear that you require, that you need, and what you don't really need. So he talks about like, you don't need all this crazy high-end equipment. He uses Ableton, by the way. He's not a Logic user. If you're a Logic user, it doesn't really matter if you're a Logic user, if you're a FruityLoops user, it doesn't matter at all. You can be any type of user in this masterclass. As long as you know how to use the DAW, you'll see similarities. For example, if you need to add a limiter to your tracks, every single DAW can do that. As long as you just know how to find that limiter within the DAW, you'll be fine. Don't worry, you don't have to be an Ableton user to take advantage of this. So it goes into everything from, everything that you need to know, from setting up your computer, setting up the DAW that he has. As long as you know your DAW, you'll be fine. The hardware comes in later. He highly recommends you shouldn't be using headphones. Only use headphones when you're like, you have to use them. What studio monitors to get, aka studio monitors, are the speakers. And if you're a newcomer, you probably don't know know that. If you're a 10-year veteran, that's the most simple thing in the world. So yeah, this is where this dynamic comes from. Don't worry, I'm trying to be respectful for everyone that's new into the world of creating music, especially younger people, 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds. If they're looking at creating music, this video is definitely for you as well as the 10-year vets. And it's all about creating your ideas. The ideas that you have, the way you create your music is so much more impactful than the gear. The gear is sort of like the icing on the cake. Your ideas and your ability to use your DAW and get your ideas out is 99% of it, and your gear is really just 1%. It's not going to dictate your success, the gear that you have. So don't worry, you don't need to invest a bucket load of money into creating music, especially at the beginnings. And of course, again, another massive video, 13 minutes. He explains how simple it really can be, which is a great comment to see. And that'll probably be different by the time you are in this masterclass as well. I mean, that's a lot of comments for a single video. Develop melodic structures. Now, if you all know Deadmau5, he has a very distinct sound, the way he uses his notes, and you actually learn how he does it, which is really cool.
And the question I get is, how did you come up with it? And I'm like, well, I didn't really come up with it. I developed it.
So whether you've had musical training or not, so of course, you don't have to be musically trained or classically trained in music to understand this, to understand Deadmau5's techniques, especially in this masterclass. So don't worry at all if you don't know anything about notation, because he barely knows notations, for God's sake. So yeah, that's what's really, really good about this. It's for those that don't know anything about notation and those that do. And if you do know, honestly, you do have a step up, you do have an advantage. I'm not going to lie to you there. If you know notation, understand chords really well, you will have advantages over somebody that doesn't, especially in this world. You basically uncover his techniques, and then you draw those melodies, and then you insert them into the DAW and creating loops that resolve. Now, that's a big deal. Resolving is a very, very important term he uses. Writing a melody, drone notes. If you don't know what these things are, that's why this masterclass exists. And don't be obvious. So he really emphasizes, and he talks about his label here a bit as well. He talks about, listen, if I'm listening to a track and I know that it's going to go A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, he's going to get relatively bored at it. But if it does something unique like A, B, Z, that's a completely different game. And then he's really impressed with that unique sound, because everyone can do the basics. So this particular lesson within the Deadmau5 Masterclass teaches you how to really break that mold a bit, especially if you're traditionally trained, like learning how melodic structures work in his mind. Then of course, lesson 6, turning melodies into arrangements. Here's how Deadmau5 takes basic chord structures and spreads them out across different instruments to make full arrangements, including bass parts and leads.
So, I mean, that's kind of how I derive melodic structure out of chord progressions.
Now, of course, he goes into leads, he goes into bass later in this masterclass, but he looks at the overview of bass lines, lead lines, and then, of course, within this masterclass, very unique, he looks at a case study of one of his biggest tracks. And as you can see, this comment, someone just called him the greatest of all time, which is, a big compliment. Lesson 7, introduction to smashing that like button. Make sure you smash that like button. It helps out the algorithm a lot. Thank you so much for that. To synthesized sounds. So once you've got the chord structure in place and you have an arrangement, it's time to build that unique instrumental sound that gives your track its character.
There's no plugin, no synth that's just going to come in and completely mystify you, because it's all the same principles.
Now, if you know Deadmau5 and his masterclass is all about you building that character. It all starts from learning the basics of synthesis. And he introduces the topics of we're here to create sounds no one has ever heard. He looks at synth basics, waveform and filters, using envelopes, LFOs to module sounds, how to build that Deadmau5 pluck, which we all love, and your first synth can teach you everything. And this video lesson goes for 12 minutes, which is great. Experimenting with modular synths.
This is all very intimidating. I think 90% of people who don't know much about audio production that come in the studio and see this wall.
Now this is where you see all his crazy equipment and you see him working on it in a teacher's mindset as well. So don't be intimidated by the wall of knobs and flashing lights. For Deadmau5, modular synths, basically analog synths, are all about messing around and finding unexpected sounds. Watch how he builds and tweaks his patches from scratch. This lesson lesson alone, it goes for 20 minutes, has more value in it than the price of this entire masterclass for maybe 2, 3, 4 years as far as I'm concerned. So cross-modulating simple waves, using envelopes to automate, adding effects, playing sequence notes, putting mod synths in your tracks, really, really powerful stuff. And then of course, one of my favorite lessons, even from 3 years ago, after rewatching this, 20 minutes of this by the way, analog synths are a big part of Deadmau5's sound. Analog gives you more flexibility. That's why he likes it so much, and that's why I love analog as well. And a great way to add creative elements to your productions. Hear the differences for yourself when Joel plays some of the patches on both digital, on analog equipment.
Like, then I can say, hey, I didn't download that sound from somewhere, and no one else will ever be able to use that. No one will ever be able to make that sound. I guarantee you that. Because no one, well, sure, maybe someone has an Oscar, right? But good luck trying to recreate that patch. And then even if you did, good luck getting it to sound in the exact same old shit condition that's in.
What's really cool about this is you actually see a patch that's a physical analog patch that's on his wall versus a digital patch, which is exactly the same, made by the same company. And you actually see the steps that digital creates. When I say steps, you have to watch the masterclass to understand what I say by steps. And then you don't see any steps on the analog platform, which is insane. And then of course that enables you to hear the difference between digital and analog sounds, which is insane. Cross modulation. And then of course the synths in one of his big tracks as well. Lesson 10. Of course, we're only halfway through this masterclass and you can see the value that you're already getting. So make sure you click that link in the description if you're looking at investing in this already. And if you're a 10-year veteran and you already know this stuff, don't get it. You probably won't get that much value from it. But if you're 1 to 5 to 6 years into creating music, totally invest in something like this. Shaping sounds with effects and processing. Learn how Deadmau5 puts life back into tired presets, build big stereo imaging, and fattens up his basses using plugins and effects processors. Now, if you're trying to figure out why your bass, why your stereo imaging doesn't exist and why it's not that good, this is the class that'll teach you this. Now, some people, this takes years for them to figure out. So he looks at thinking outside the box of the preset box, if you will. Use effects to create original sounds. The secret to fat bass, which is insane, by the way. He looks at reverbs. He looks at adding space and depth to your sound, which is a really big deal. 20 minutes of this. And then, of course, I love this last one. Processing the S word into gold. So how do you basically turn that's something that doesn't really look that good. You know, a turd is still a turd at the end of the day. How do you process something and you turn it into something amazing? Really, really cool. And you can see the community is super engaged. And you can see that the community, 500 comments, are super engaged in this. Take advantage of that. Beats part 1. Of course, Deadmau5 looks at the kick drum, which is basically the heart of all the electronic dance music, all EDM.
I have a lot of songs that I've written and done that don't have drums, that are just, you know, big synth chorales, kind of stuff like that. And you know, Sebastian Bach did that too. Mozart did that too, and no one shit on him for, you know, not having a drop, you know, or that big bass in it, you know.
Learn how Joel lays his kick drum samples to lay the groundwork for big danceable grooves. He emphasizes that dance beats should be for everyone. There's no such thing as a bad drum sample. Building your kick sounds, watch out for phase cancellation, really important by the way, and balancing drums and melody, which a lot of people get wrong. And this is the exact lesson that you need to know how to find that balance between drums and melody. Whereas some people just add drums on top of everything and it completely destroys the melody and they don't add filters to things. Really, really critical. Beats part 2, a deeper dive into this. So of course, Beats part 1 goes for 15 minutes and then Beats part 2 goes for basically 14 minutes, 30 minutes of just beats because it is important. They had to separate it into 2 different lessons. A deeper dive into Deadmau5's rhythmic techniques with lessons to snare sounds and a closer look at the drum tracks in SnowCone, which is a really popular track. So you're not just getting theory, you're getting practical tracks that have become really popular. You're learning from his greatest tracks as well. The secret to snare sounds, making your drums breathe, and then of course the case study, which is really valuable, looking at one of his most popular tracks, SnowCone. 15-minute lessons, all up, beats, 30 minutes, really good. Now structure, a lot of people have a problem with structure. I've never actually had this problem before when it comes to structuring my tracks, and if you know this just by if you've watched any of my first ever Deadmau5 Masterclass videos 2-3 years ago. So I've never really had that problem, but I know a lot of people that do have this problem.
Everyone in the crowd is a grown-ass adult, or at least I would hope or assume over the age of 16. We don't have to clap our hands if we're, if you're happy and we know it.
So now you've developed your chord structure, you've arranged it with exciting synth sounds and adding drums and know a lot more about beats. Now Deadmau5 shows you how to combine all of these elements into an exciting track, an exciting song to create. So copy, add, subtract. That's a really big method that he uses all the time. Finding the right track length, which is perfectly in line with the following video 14, which talks about remixes, radio mixes, and then complete reworks as well. So the lessons are flowing really well. And then of course, think ahead to your live set. There's more to music than just big drops. And if you know Deadmau5 and you know the music that I create as well, you know that we can create big drops and they're great for having a really good pumped up time at a party. They're not everything when it comes to music creation, to be honest with you. Lesson 14, remixes. Learn how Deadmau5 works when he's remixing other artists and what he likes to hear when other artists reach out to him and remix for him. He looks at the topics of don't remix, actually rework the tracks, add something unique of value to it, choosing remix material, what starts a remix can end as your own track. Then of course he gives you a literal blueprint on how to remix his own tracks and what he's going to like and what he's not going to like at all. And then of course he encourages you to start your own Deadmau5 remix of one of his tracks, which is really fun, which engages you with the community. They're sharing their remixes and it's absolute fire, right? So it's great. Mixing.
Your average listener's not going to listen to, which is why you can have a fucking kid make a dance hit on a laptop and then, on the same level, have a guy who's been doing it for 15 years do it in a $2 million studio and have it sound more or less the same. The average listener is not going to notice the difference.
Good producers need to know how to write original music and how to mix it to sound great. Here are some important techniques Joel uses to shape his tracks into the mix. This is a 20-minute lesson. So tracks and groups, earballing, EQ and clarity, getting your leads to sit in the track itself, shaping your bass, LFO tool versus compression, mixing in your home studio. Really powerful stuff when it comes to mixing. Lesson 16, mastering. A lot of people don't do this at all, which is a real shame because a lot of their tracks can be mastered, and a mastering can make a track sound unbelievable and can really step up your sound relative to other people. And it's a shame a lot of other producers don't master their tracks.
That's actually the same volume as that. And that's one of the things that where everybody fucks up.
So unlike a lot of other artists, Deadmau5 actually masters all of his own tracks himself. So in this masterclass, and he talks about doing an advanced masterclass, by the way, you learn the basics of his approach to gain structure, EQing, and limiting as well. Really powerful stuff. Mastering yourself, mastering basics, limiting, how limiters work, no magic master chains at all, how loudness is perceived, and getting feedback on your mix, who you need to talk to. And this community is perfect for getting feedback on your mix. So take advantage of this. Mastering case study. So here's an example of SnowCone and how he mastered it. He takes you into SnowCone plugin by plugin and he looks at, okay, this is exactly how I've mastered this, and hear how each piece is affecting and honing the track sound altogether. And he actually makes a slight adjustment to improve it, which is pretty interesting. So in this, he looks at comparing different master chains. He looks at EQing and keeping an eye on signal path. Again, this isn't just for the complete beginners. It can be really good for advanced users as well, this masterclass. 18, starting your producing career.
Don't go actively seeking shit because you're wasting fucking time. You could have been in the studio being better at what you do, as opposed to just sucking and then, spending the rest of your life trying to peddle your suck.
Deadmau5, or otherwise known as Joel, puts on his label management hat to talk about what he looks for when he's signing up and coming EDM artists, and offers advice on how you can develop your brand and promote it to the right people in the right way. He looks at how labels are looking for the total package in someone. So someone that can do their own marketing. If you can make the label's life easier, that's only a benefit for you. The truth about getting signed: invest in yourself, aka investing in something like the Deadmau5 Masterclass, the Armin Van Buuren Masterclass. And if you're really insane and dedicated, which is a good thing, you want to look at the Hans Zimmer's Masterclass as well and look at he creates his music. Really powerful stuff. Defining your brand, making it unique and stand out. I mean, Deadmau5 used a mouse head, for God's sake, so he looks at that as well. And then of course the major secret in selling yourself, or to selling yourself, you simply don't. And DeadMau5 actually explains what that means in detail in this video. Understanding the music business, a lot of people don't get it. A lot of producers just want to create music. And if you want to actually make a living from this, you need to understand the business behind it, because we're in a capitalistic world and that's just how the cookie crumbles. He looks at how major labels can cause major headaches, or even worse, right? So here is what DeadMau5 has basically learned about navigating that business world. And this lesson alone will save you years of failure, to be honest with you. Learn the system and make it work for you. What did DeadMau5 do? He actually created his own label for producers, because he is a producer, so he knows what he's doing. He looks at the major problems. I don't believe in problems myself. I believe in opportunities with major labels. He looks at building your team, having a good environment around you, the online marketplace, and approach to making albums. And don't stress over the music titles, for God's sake.
The name is not going to change the popularity of the track. Unless you called it you might actually not sell as many doing that. It's true.
If you look at DeadMau5's titles in his tracks, you will know they're all pretty crap. But hey, the music sounds good, and that's what matters. On stage, now, of course, I have to give it to the Armin Van Buuren Masterclass here. I believe the on-stage component for Armin Van Buuren is better than DeadMau5, but over the years, DeadMau5 has improved. So it takes effort and planning to play a set that's creative and keeps your audience engaged. This is pretty critical. I see a lot of DJs out there, a lot of disc jockeys out there that just have absolutely no idea, and it gets really boring, very flat, fast. And here's how you take your music from the studio to the stage. He talks about programming shows. He talks about playing with the DAW. So Ableton Live is a big one here. Creating your light. He looks at crafting your set list, and opening and endings matter the most. On stage as well, the technical side. So there isn't just like, this is what you need to prepare, but here are the technicalities behind it. So, you know, the A show, the B show, rehearsing every aspect of your show. What's in the cube? Now, there's actually videos on this now on YouTube. So you want to check those videos out on what is actually in the cube. He's up to version 3 or 4 of that cube. It's extremely advanced, that thing, and he's invested a lot of money in that. So that's pretty cool. Keeping your equipment running, you know, overloads can happen. Why there are so many CDJs or USBJs, if you will, and keeping it cool. On stage, the actual show itself. Performance is more than just making great music. For DeadMau5, it's all about giving your audience an experience they'll never forget. So topics including this one: don't be like a Saw movie, that's for sure. I love that analogy. And putting on a show. Don't treat it just like another day in the office, and feeling comfortable on stage. And this class goes for 10 minutes, so it's pretty crazy, pretty good. And then of course, the last final lesson in the Deadmau5 Masterclass, the closing. You've made it through the class and learned all the types of skills. Now hear DeadMau5's advice on how to start putting it into practice and to use. And you would have already started while you were doing this masterclass as well. So pretty powerful. Here's an amazing comment. Awesome class. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Now, of course, I have a link in the description which you want to take advantage of. And I've just noticed they've added a fundamentals guide to this as well. Well, let's look at this right now while we're here. So here is the music fundamentals guide, which I've just noticed. There's only 3 pages. I want to be really respectful for those that have actually invested in this. I'm only going to show you the first page. If you want to read this, by all means, go for it, pause it. If you're this far into the video, make sure you're smashing that like button for the algorithm. It helps me out a lot. So that is the complete review video of the Deadmau5 Masterclass. By now, if you're this far into the video, I really appreciate it. Make sure to smash that like button. But also by now, I hope you've figured out, is this masterclass worth it for you? I hope you've answered that for yourself. But in summary, if you're a complete novice, you're a complete beginner, I would highly recommend you invest in this Deadmau5 Masterclass. Make sure you take advantage of my link in the description and tell me what price you see as a result of that. Really interested to hear where you're from and the price you see. If you're a complete advanced user and you're maybe 7+ years down the line of creating music, you probably don't want to invest in something like this. Maybe so much for the added entertainment value, but also access to the community that DeadMau5, Armin Van Buuren, Hans Zimmer has built. These guys are a good bunch of guys. They're dedicated, they're positive. So I would only invest if you want access to this type of community. It's a big deal. They're all learning, they're learning fast, and they're creating music really well together. So that community aspect is something you want to explore. So even when it comes to maybe just buying the single class, which will give you you access to the community forever. Really powerful stuff. And you could see there are 9,000, like almost 10,000 comments in some of these videos. So the community is going off. Make sure you smash that like button, guys. Make sure to subscribe as well. It really helps me out a lot. If DeadMau5 ever decides to create an advanced masterclass, I'll be here for you, waiting for it as well. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate if you're this far into the video. And also, here's one of my favorite comments from one of the last videos I created. Make sure you comment below to be featured in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Lewis P. out.